Hello and welcome to Protect AI with AI, securing your modern multi-cloud apps with F5 and Google Cloud. Today's webinar is sponsored by F5 and Google Cloud and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is Scott Becker. I'm from Actual Tech, and I am excited to be your moderator for this fireside chat style conversation. Now, before we get to today's great session, we have 4 housekeeping items that are going to help you get the most out of it. First off, we want this to be an informative event for you, so we encourage any questions in the questions box in your webinar control panel. So not only will we have team members responding to questions during the live event, but we'll also have a dedicated Q&A session at the end of the presentation where we'll discuss in greater detail some of the top questions that you ask. That Q&A panel is also the place to let us know about any technical issues that you might experience. A browser refresh will fix most audio, video, or slide advancement issues, but if that doesn't work, just let us know there in the Q&A and we'll provide further technical assistance. Now, second, in the handout section of your webinar control panel, you'll find that we're offering several resources. I'd especially like to call your attention to the link for Ask the Expert. That gives you the opportunity to sign up for a 30-minute call with F5 to see how F5 would work with Google Cloud in your environment and for your situation. So I encourage you to access those resources in there now and share them with your friends and colleagues. Now, third, at the end of this webinar event, we will be awarding a $250 Amazon gift card to one lucky registrant. Of course, you must be in attendance during the live event to qualify for the prize. Official terms and conditions of today's prize drawing can also be found in your handout section. You just scroll to the bottom and you'll find a link with the details there. Now, finally, one of the best benefits of this event is the opportunity to ask a question of our expert presenters. So to help encourage your questions, we have a special additional prize for you. That's another Amazon gift card, this one for $50 for the best question. After the event is over, we'll look at all the questions that came in, pick out the very best one, and contact that prize winner. Okay, with all that housekeeping out of the way, let's get to today's timely discussion. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to our presenters today. We have Joshua Hazlitt, who's Strategic Technology Partner Manager with Google Cloud. And we have Gary New, who's Vice President of Global Solution Architects for Platforms, Infrastructure, and Cloud at F5. And guiding the conversation is my Actual Tech Media moderation colleague, the delightful Jess Steinbach. So I'm going to turn things over to Jess now to get us started.
All right. Well, hi. Hello, Josh. So excited to be back here with you. Gary, welcome to the webinar. Really pumped up to get in and hear a little bit more from both of you today. And I want to start out with a little bit of a get to know you both. So I'm wondering if we could ask you guys to tell us a little bit about who you are and what brings you here today and what you're excited to dig into with the audience. Josh, you're our returning veteran. You want to kick us off?
Thanks, Jess. It's great to be back. And hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm so excited to be here. We're going to be talking about AI, which is one of my very close, near and dear to my heart. And we're with one of my favorite partners, F5, here to talk to you today about how we work together to help you solve for implementing AI in your environment.
Hi, everyone. My name is Gary. I'm excited to be here, more than excited. I think the topic is very, very interesting. And I just feel very happy talking to our very good partner, Google, and especially Josh. Josh is cool. We like Josh.
We do like Josh. Yeah. No, it is, you know what, Gary, I think more than excited is the right place to start this conversation because this is such an interesting conversation. There's so many layers to it. There's so many ways to approach it. And we're going to sort of get into as much as we can. There's a lot to cover. I'm going to jump right in and ask you guys to give us a little bit of information on AI's impact, specifically on applications. And and Josh, I'll kick this to you to start us out here. I'd like it if you could maybe give us the window of where the impact is now and what you see as the roadmap for the impact as we go forward.
Yeah, sounds good, Jess. Happy to start. It's an interesting question. And I think it seems that, no matter where you turn today, you're seeing AI everywhere, right? And it's really leading the hype cycle across all industries, quite frankly. I do a lot of research on who's saying what about AI right now. Of course, Google's saying a lot, but in a recent survey I was seeing, KPMG noticed that 97% of CEOs with companies of $1 billion in revenue and higher, they all have major AI initiatives at this point. And another stat I ran across was that 43% of organizations are already using AI in some shape or form in their companies already. So I'd say this is because, what we're seeing is there's an understanding that AI delivers an opportunity to delight your customers in a whole new way and improve the productivity of your employees. And so I think everybody's taking a look at how do we leverage AI, where do we put it, and how do we drive, new benefits that we haven't been capable of previously. So, we're seeing businesses really solve for a couple of key use cases, and I'll share those just so that everybody can kind of benefit from them. The first is enhancing user experience. We're seeing that AI-powered features like recommendation engines, personalized search results, intelligent chatbots, these are all making applications more intuitive and personalized. And I think that's one of the things we really want to do is how can we reach our customers in a better way and give them a more personalized experience. Another way is automation of routine tasks, right? There's things that we all do in our daily lives that we just don't need to spend time on. There are high value activities and low value activities, and AI can help take those low value activities and really get those out of the way. And so close to home for this audience would be cybersecurity threat detection and of course remediation, right? How do we kind of get the noise out of the system so that humans can focus on creative and higher priority work? And then the third is improved decision making. So in fields like healthcare, finance, marketing, AI is analyzing vast amounts of data to identify patterns and trends that lead to better decision making and give us humans a better understanding of that data, right? So diagnosis and treatment recommendations, risk assessment, and targeted advertising are some key things that we see businesses really trying to leverage. So AI is enabling applications to do things that previously were impossible, such as real-time language translation, image and speech recognition, even generating content like art and music. And so I think AI is poised to transform the way that we interact with applications and make them more intelligent. And then it's critical, of course, to address how do you do these in ethical and societal, safe ways to ensure that we're developing it and using it responsibly to benefit humanity and not cause detriment. So.
Yeah, that's a huge piece, the avoiding the detriment to humanity side of it. And I think that's where the conversation started when we first started talking about AI a lot, was around the sort of the fear end of it. And now I love that the words that we're using have changed to delight and enhancement. And I think the conversation has shifted a little bit. Gary, I'd love to hear from you on that a little bit as well.
Yeah, look, for me, this brings me back because this is such a shift in technology that it reminds me when Google launched search back in the 90s. All of a sudden, everyone had access to all the information. Okay, and that democratized that access to information for everyone. So everyone was able to use it for a lot of things. I think now with AI, we're seeing a similar thing, but not only do we get access to the information, we can now use the information, like Josh was saying, to make better decisions. We can ask the information to be summarized for us to help us make faster decisions. So I think it's going to be, it's a very pivotal point, dare I say it, in humanity. And I know it's very easy to get caught up in the hype. I'm a skeptic by nature, but I actually think that what we're seeing here is something we will remember. I think Josh mentioned cybersecurity, and I think what it provides here, well, it's a double-edged sword, really. Okay, so what we have the ability to use these tools to provide better risk mitigation, to provide better security, better threat identification, but also it makes it easier for anyone who has access to the internet to start writing vulnerabilities, to start creating bots, to start crawling websites, to start doing all of these things that before you needed to be a little bit skilled to do. Because if we've democratized this now, anyone can do it.
Boy, that is the concern, hey, that, if the good guys have access, the bad guys have access, and we're making it easy for us, we're making it easy for them, and then we go back and around again. But I love that analogy or equation. I hadn't thought of that, of the launch of Google search being similar, and that democratization of access. And I think that is one of the coolest things about AI, is that democratization in terms of access to the technology and the opportunities, but also the fact that it's in our conversation, that people are talking about technology and AI in a way and across dinner tables that we never used to see before. So it's a really cool time. And I think you're right, possibly maybe not being too grandiose to say that this is a pivotal moment for humanity, hopefully for the better. Hopefully this is not, we're not looking back on this at the end of the dystopian. Yeah.
We're going to try and address some of that today, Jess. We want to make the audience feel more comfortable. So,
Excellent, Josh. Thank you. I knew that you would be bringing joy and comfort to our audience today. Well, let's keep rolling with our conversation then, because I want to get into that hopeful finale we've got here. Google recently announced the new Gemini family of AI models. So, Josh, I'm going to kick this back to you, our resident Googleite. How do you see these new AI models affecting applications and their development?
Yeah, you're right, Jess. I think, as we're taking a look at where large language models are going, we see different applications for them. And it's important that we help customers adapt the right models for the right use case. So, for sure, what we've done is we've announced Gemini, which is our latest release of our multimodal large language model. And we've combined that with our Google Cloud Vertex AI model garden. So what does that all mean? Well, first of all, I think let's talk about the models. So the Gemini models are designed to handle both text and images. That's kind of the whole concept of multimodal, right? We can take and combine those into queries or in responses. But this opens up possibilities for applications that seamlessly integrate those two modalities. And so we can expect to see applications that can understand and generate content based upon both text and visual inputs, which of course leads to a much rich user experience. So the three models that we've got: Pro, which is optimized for a wide range of tasks. It's versatile, it's powerful, and it can handle language understanding, generation, and even some image related stuff. And it's suitable for business and developers who need a reliable and scalable AI model for their projects. We've also got Ultra, Gemini Ultra, which is the most capable and powerful. And we typically see this in complex tasks that need advanced reasoning, things like research, right? So understanding of intricate concepts, handling large volume of data. So this is great for researchers and development purposes, tackling complex problems that really push the boundaries of AI today. And then Nano, which is the smallest of our models, and this is the most efficient that we have, which is designed to run on any device, meaning it can be used on smartphones, for instance, like our Pixel, and then other devices that have limited computational power. So Nano's perfect for things for real-time responsiveness. Think like mobile assistants and translation apps, things that are real-time and on the device. So by integrating Gemini with Vertex Model Garden, what we've done is we've made it streamlined for businesses to be able to leverage these models, developers to access and utilize that state-of-the-art capability, and then integrate it easily into their applications and workflows.
Okay, well, that's very exciting. Where are these apps actually running?
They run everywhere, but let's start with where they run best.
Easy answer.
So companies, of course, that are using Google Cloud can easily access the latest GPUs and TPUs, which is our own tensor processing units, to run their applications. And of course, if they run in Google Cloud, then they're taking advantage of the platform's power and scale. However, we do know that there are use cases where AI needs to be closer to the workload, maybe latency reasons or data sovereignty reasons. So we recently announced our support for AI models also running on Google Distributed Cloud, which allows customers to put infrastructure in place that's either still connected to the cloud, but localized on the prem, or in air-gapped environments. So if they have fully disconnected data sovereignty issues that they need to address, they can do that as well. So this allows companies to really innovate at a new speed or in locations where it wasn't feasible to deliver complex AI models before.
Yeah, and that's really important because we are seeing more and more complex environments. And Gary, maybe I can ask you to chime in on that a little bit too, because I'd love to get an idea from you on maybe like the pros and cons, the good and the bad of running apps in this sort of variegated in these complex environments.
Well, I mean, look, there are lots of benefits about being able to run apps and workloads wherever you need them to be. Josh touched on a few of them, but I mean, to be able to choose the best location for that workload, that could be in a Google Cloud region, it could be in an on-prem data center, in a colo facility, or for data sovereignty reasons, like Josh mentioned, in an air-gapped environment. And with the availability of the nano models, we are going to see more of these LLM models pushed out closer to the edge, whether that is on an end device or whether it's going to be kind of just-in-time use of these things right at the very, very edge where the users are. So there's going to be a great choice and great opportunity to distribute these. But I think some of the issues we need to look out for are, well, how do we secure this? And not just secure in the regular sense, there's a whole range of new things we need to look out for when it comes to securing LLM models, like model poisoning, like prompt injection, things like that. So we have to kind of take a holistic view of this. And I think one of the things we need to look at is how do we make that security consistent across all of these different environments? Because when you do that, typically what you'll find is that there are different tool sets for different environments, different ways. You might have a control that does X, but it's implemented different ways in different environments. So for me, I think is trying to come up with some sort of consistent method to enforce your controls in all these environments is going to be key to success of these. We don't want these to run wild, and we want to keep people safe.
Yes, I have this image in my head of like little tree houses, and they all have like rickety ladders stuck between them because, even if you have the best tree house in the world, but it can't, it has to connect into all these other teams, and everyone has different tree houses, and so it just ends up with an opportunity for chaos. I don't know why tree houses are the metaphor that are in my head, but that's where I'm at today. So, Gary, I want to keep exploring our rickety treehouse, our challenges and obstacles. So, with multi-cloud, what are you seeing customers struggle with, especially when we're talking about connecting apps? And then in a positive move, what do you think that they could start doing to make that a little bit easier?
Yeah. So let's take the treehouse analogy because I think we can go with that one. I think right now what we see is that people are struggling with the speed to connect these things. So when they're adding new edge devices or new locations, it typically takes a long time to do this. So we need to speed that up and make that a lot easier, but make it easier with consistent policies everywhere. Again, back to this consistency point. So if you take the treehouse analogy, one of the things we see is instead of just building a ladder from one treehouse to the other treehouse, where anyone from each treehouse can go between it, what we see in this is we should be focusing on connecting the apps or the app interfaces, APIs in most cases, to the correct ones. Okay, so in the treehouse analogy, it would be equivalent to having a bouncer on the treehouse, a security guard on the treehouse saying, okay, who are you? Who are you going to talk to and where are you going to go? Exactly. If your name's not down, you're not coming in. But having that level of contextual knowledge about the data that's flowing, not just from the internet into these models, but between all of these models, because a lot of the way these applications are going to be deployed are going to be in some sort of Kubernetes environment where there's a lot of east-west communication. So being able to secure that with that context that I mentioned, and being able to understand application A talking to application B, talking to database C, is going to be key. And I think what we see then is kind of people taking advantage of some of the services that we already have, something like service discovery. So when an LLM service is available, it advertises that within its cluster and within some of the other clusters. So being able to kind of take that and go, okay, well, that's available, let's allow traffic to it now. But when it's not available, let's get rid of that rule. Let's not allow anyone to pretend to be it. Let's not allow anyone to kind of try and, shimmy themselves into that, hide behind you in your treehouse and try to kind of, sneak in behind you. For us, I think we call it secure multi-cloud networking, and it's something we work very hard on. We work with Google on this as well to kind of make sure that it works across wherever our customers want to deploy it.
The image that immediately popped into my head was, for any Simpsons fans, was the "No Homers Allowed" sign that's out front. Yeah. Josh, I want to harken back to previous webinars that we've done together, and you guys have talked about frictionless security. And that stuck in my head because I really like the sound of that. And hey, we all have a lot of friction in our life these days. So anything that we can do to make things a little bit smoother is great. So Gary, I'm wondering if maybe you could start us out a little bit on a conversation about what we mean when we say frictionless security from F5 and Google Cloud, and why it's important beyond just, hey, any less friction is a good thing. Why specifically is that important? And Gary, maybe you can start us out, and Josh, then I'd love to hear from you as well.
Sure. So, I mean, the first thing is that this stuff is hard. It is really difficult to get right. And with that in mind, we want to make sure it's as easy as possible for people to do it, because if it's easy, people will adopt it. If it's difficult, people will find ways around it. Okay, so that's why we work very hard with partners like Google to test our solutions in their environment to make sure that it works easily for customers to adopt and deploy, and buy and bill and all that sort of stuff to remove as much friction as possible. As I said, just to make it easy. I think what we are going to see is with AI, there's going to be a huge increase in the amount of applications. So, if we want to ride this AI horse off into the sunset, which I think, it's another analogy, it's not a treehouse one, but if we want to kind of take advantage of it now, we have to remove as much friction as possible to allow the creators to create and build the things that are actually going to make our lives better.
Yeah, you're so right, Gary. Absolutely. And I think, a key thing that we've done to remove friction in the process is number one, pre-validate and pre-integrate, right? So F5 and Google work together to take a look at that for customers. The next thing is reference architectures, right? Depending on the type of application you're delivering, how it's architected, what data sources, is it multi-cloud, is it, just in Google Cloud, those type of things. We really want to help with what's the best practice deployment, that they can use. And then, I think Gary alluded to the purchasing of it, right? So how do we streamline even the acquisition, process? And so working with Google Cloud Marketplace is a key way to do that, to where we've streamlined the way for customers to budget, procure, and then deploy F5 solutions on Google Cloud. So I think across the board, we're really taking a look at how do we, pre-integrate, provide reference, and then provide a easy way to procure and deploy.
Every once in a while, and everything that I hear from you guys is always fascinating. And then there's always these little moments, little phrases that really stick in my head and allow the creators to create jumped out at me. And I think that's a really wonderful sort of way to sum that all up. So me being totally sold on that and loving that, how do I actually make that happen? Gary, how do I achieve frictionless security?
Well, I think first of all, it's important to say that there is no silver bullet. There's no single tool. There's no single company that can mitigate all your risk and help you implement frictionless security, unfortunately. Okay. But I do think you can start to, do things like choose the best solution for your environment and, more importantly, for your operational environment and your operational practices. And I think as we see kind of the rise of multi-cloud and people kind of starting to string things together, that's going to become more important. That's consistent across everything. And that's very important to us as well. I think being able to kind of leverage tools that discover, so you don't have to know about everything, that can automatically identify new workloads and obviously new threats. I think that's a given, but to be able to identify those things quickly and then apply policy to it automatically, to use AI to use it to identify these threats and mitigate them, to use it to identify baseline behavior, things we've talked about for a long time. But I think with these with the large language models, it'll help us do these things an awful lot quicker. I mean, some of the things we're working on is the ability to, just use natural language to query all of your logs and then say, did I suffer a SQL injection attack, as an example? And, then your large language model say, why, yes, you did. And here's where it happened. And you can say, well, can you write me a rule to fix that? And it will say, of course I can, Gary. Here is the rule. Now you can go implement it. But that's the kind of future we're working on here, is kind of trying to use these things, as I said, to let creators create, but to let people kind of get on with doing their own business so they don't have to worry about this.
That actually does raise an interesting question for me, Gary. I'm curious for people out there. When I speak to ChatGPT, I always speak politely. Thank you so much. Could you please, if you please? And I don't know why I do that, but I am speaking to my LLMs that way. So, it never hurts to be a little polite to the AI.
No.
Okay, speaking of AI, Josh, I have a question for you, and I'm going to zoom us back a little bit, because Gary and I were chatting a bit earlier about the sort of, hey, if the good guys have it, the bad guys have it, and so this is AI is part of that double-edged sword that Gary was telling us about. So I'm wondering if we could take a look at the dark side of the sword. And if you could give us a little bit of insight into how you are seeing AI impacting the attack surface.
Yeah, you bet. So, it's interesting. The past year, we really witnessed revolutionary advancements, in the field of generative AI. Google's been working on AI for a long, long time, but we've seen this kind of rapid adoption of interest and folks subscribing and using and trying. You mentioned GPT. So, yeah, ChatGPT reached its first 1 million users in only 5 days. If you think about, the rate of adoption, that's one of the fastest curves we've ever seen for technology interest and then engagement. So, that's been tremendous. However, the dark side of the sword, as you say, the unfortunate news is that that also means that we've made it very easy for cyber criminals to exploit the technology and create sophisticated cyber threats. As a matter of fact, doing a little more research, right? Cornell University here recently discovered that LLM agents can autonomously exploit one-day vulnerabilities when given the CVE descriptions, which is pretty scary to think about. You teach the LLM what the vulnerability is, and then it can go and actually, take the actions to exploit it. In another study that they released in February, LLM agents can autonomously hack websites by performing simple tasks, tasks as complex as blind database schema extraction and SQL injections, right? Like Gary was talking about. So, and this doesn't require human feedback at this point. They can just, set it and forget it kind of. So you have to think about the rate at which that could provide what we've traditionally seen in like bot attacks. And, this just, amps it up even further. And we're not the only ones paying attention, right? Think about what the US government unveiled here just recently. And that's new security guidelines aimed at bolstering critical infrastructure against artificial intelligence related threats. It really thinks about and addresses the use of AI to augment and scale attacks on critical infrastructure. We're already seeing situations where we have utilities that are under attack, and that's not a good scenario because typically that infrastructure is aged. It needs to be bolstered. It needs simple solutions like what Gary's talking about to try and put in the right protections against these type of threats. But we really have to get to the point where we start to think about this and understand what are the areas that I need to specifically protect against. So, what does the U.S. government say? Well, first, establish an organizational culture of AI risk management. Second, understand your individual AI use context that you're using for, and then what's the risk profile. Third, develop systems that can assess, analyze, and track the AI risks. And then fourth, prioritize and act upon those risks to, safely and secure those environments. It's interesting because that actually mirrors a lot of what we've been working on with our own secure AI framework principles at Google. And the first of that is very much what Gary's been talking about, which is let's leverage tried and true infrastructure protections, right? A lot of the existing practices we do today for securing applications and data, it extends to AI deployments. Of course, we're going to have new threats that we have to think about, but let's start with the basics. The second one is identifying the types of vulnerabilities that exist, right? So Gary's mentioned prompt injection, model poisoning. We need to educate ourselves on what these new threats look like and then apply the appropriate level of threat intelligence to those. The third is really thinking about, look, we've gotten to a point where only AI can stop AI. That's one of the reasons that F5 has been implementing AI into their technologies is because we have to get as fast as the threat actors can be. And so we've got to harness AI innovations to respond. The fourth is applying control frameworks really to implement risk mitigation. So for instance, right, with Vertex AI and our Gemini models, we've made secure by default components to that. Where we have to add partners like F5 is when we think about protecting the users, the application to LLM access. So the model's secure. How do you secure the application to make sure that you don't have vulnerabilities there? Fifth is to constantly test those implementations, right, through continuous learning. We're seeing such rapid advancements when it comes to AI and the models. So you've got to update your training sets. You've got to think about how you fine tune those models and then what access those have to other data infrastructure. And then last but not least, right, conduct end-to-end risk assessments related to how your organization is going to deploy AI and really understand what those exposures look like.
And Josh, we got to get you back here. I want to do a whole webinar just on these 6 secure AI framework principles. When you were talking about the government's suggestion to establish an organizational culture of AI risk management, my first thought was, do we have an understanding of what that actually means? I mean, that's a huge topic or suggestion. And I think that the 6 steps that you've outlined are a great foundation for that. And I think there's a lot more conversation to have around them. I'm gonna ask you. We're gonna zoom in a little bit because today, obviously, we're talking a little bit about applications, and I want to get into APIs. So when we're looking, we were chatting earlier about our multi-cloud environment. We were up in the treehouse of horrors or dreams, depending on how well your infrastructure is designed. So Gary, I'll maybe send this on over to you. What should the audience be considering when they're thinking about actually protecting their APIs and specifically in that multi-cloud environment?
That's a good question. I think it's important to frame it as well that when we talk about APIs here, APIs are the way you communicate with an LLM. That's it, right? You when you type into your browser or whatever, it is using an API to communicate. So that's what you have to secure. There was a time when I remember when every security talk started with the Sun Tzu quote of "Know thy enemy" or "Know your enemy" and all, and it was pretty cringe at the time. But I think it's becoming a little bit relevant again, but not in terms of knowing who is attacking you, but knowing kind of what they're attacking. And I say that with regard to APIs because we've seen. I guess you could call it API sprawl, but we've seen situations where organizations have so many APIs running that they don't know where they are, they don't know what they do, they don't know what information is on the end of it, and it's not because of a kind of a lack of controls or anything. It's just because when developers are building applications, their interface into them is an API. When they install a new framework to build in, that includes an API. So we see this proliferation, if I can say that right, of APIs throughout many, many organizations. So the first thing is you have to know them. So you have to be able to discover these APIs. Okay, and that's a big thing. Once you've discovered them, I think then the next thing is what we used to do was we could say, oh, you've got these APIs. There you go. Now do what you want with them. It has to be much more than that. We go back to frictionless security. We have to be able to look at these APIs and immediately put some sort of mitigation or controls in place. Because as Josh said, if we've got autonomous AI systems exploiting day one attacks based on a description of a CVE, identifying these APIs, then waiting for a model to learn and waiting for kind of someone to accept that learning, it's just not acceptable anymore. It just won't work. So we need to be able to implement this kind of API discovery, immediate security, okay, and security that adapts and learns. And the other point here when we talk about this with multi-cloud is that it has to work everywhere. It has to be consistent, and it has to be tested and built with companies like Google. Okay, we use a lot of the products internally as well, but not so much in that part of it, but integrating with the marketplace, integrating all that stuff so it's easy and I guess back to frictionless. So.
Yeah, great points, Gary. It's funny. You'll have to forgive me for this reference. I'm going to say, I have Gen Zers in my house because I'm a father of 5. But right now, the discussion around tree houses and the discussion around knowing your enemy, it's giving Avatar. That's kind of where I'm landing on that.
That was not the transition I would have expected you to make, Josh, and I love it. It's giving Avatar.
Giving Avatar, yeah. So, but Gary, you make some really salient points, and I think the key here is that identifying and securing APIs is becoming more important every day. You're right that APIs are the application programming interface. From how communication occurs between applications and now occurs to LLMs and AI. And so, yeah, with just the usage of cloud computing, the rise of microservices, and the way that we're moving down the path of AI, there's huge API growth. And to your point, you said earlier that applications are going to grow quickly as far as SaaS is concerned and how they're using AI. Well, APIs are coming right along with it. So we've got to think about what are the basics around how we protect it.
I mean, just to put it into context, if you open an app on your phone, whatever app it is, that app is actually calling maybe 20 or 30, maybe more APIs to get all the information to render it in your phone app. So if it's your bank, it's querying your account, it's querying your savings, it's querying your due dates, it's querying all of these different microservices to provide all that information to you. So if you can imagine that's what we have today, imagine what it's going to be like when everything is LLM enabled as well.
Man, I am very excited and slightly concerned about that. But you know what? It's not just the technology that's evolving very quickly. You guys are too, and the tools and solutions around this are evolving all the time. F5 has made some very exciting AI related announcements a little bit earlier this year. So Gary, since we've got you here,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about these exciting champagne inducing announcements. What do you got?
Sure. So I guess the first thing to say is that we've been using and working with AI, and I guess machine learning, as it was called before we had the large language models, and AI has kind of become the word du jour now, or kind of, yeah. But we've been using this. I mean, as far back as 2016, we leveraged this technology in some of our security products to learn and build policies and to identify attacks. So this is nothing new for F5. We've been working very closely with Google. We're a very large user of their Vertex AI platform in-house ourselves. And that helps us kind of identify anomalous traffic, identify credential stuffing attacks, identify kind of, all this automated traffic that kind of that can overload websites and kind of steal information. But we're starting to look at it, I guess, now AI itself, and particularly what we're talking about today with large language models, in three main areas. Okay, so the first one is, how can we use AI to improve our customers' experience? Okay, and what we're talking about there is, how can we get customers access to information very, very quickly? How can we get customers to give them the ability to change configurations or configure things very, very quickly, easily, by using natural language? The next area is kind of, how can we use AI to make our products more effective? As I said, we've been a very big user, early adopter of these technologies, but how can we expand the use across our products to make them better for our customers and identify those 0-day and day one threats before they impact and steal information from our customers? And the other area is kind of, how can we help our customers deploy and secure their AI workloads wherever they are? We're seeing customers kind of adopt the SaaS providers, cloud providers, kind of going all in with say Google and using Gemini. We've also seen customers with a mix of that and kind of take some models in locally. So maybe take a Gemini model, run it locally with their own data. We've seen other customers kind of use RAG to kind of set up the context so they can kind of, use a general model, but for their own kind of use case and their own data. So what we've done, we've announced ourselves, we've built our own AI data fabric, which we announced maybe a month ago. And that's the foundation for us for all of our AI workloads. So it's a fabric that spans multi-clouds and enables our teams to quickly deploy and train models on F5 data. And it's a quick interface for them to kind of implement RAG for, customer specific or product specific outcomes as well. We've also last week, I think, announced some partnerships with some newer companies like Portkey.ai, AI Shield, to integrate it into our platform. And the beauty about that is that because of the testing and partnership we have with Google, when we integrate these things into our platform, they're available through our platform running in Google as well. Okay, so that makes it easier, back to frictionless. That makes it easier for our customers too. And I think we have been working with NVIDIA, as an example, and Intel for many, many years, kind of on how do we accelerate and secure cloud and edge workloads, which today is very, very pertinent for AI because we're pushing these things out to the edge. So yeah, so lots of exciting stuff here. It's an exciting time. Every couple of years you're like, well, this industry, oh, well, we've seen peak whatever now, and then boom, this happens. It's like, whoa, I have to learn everything again, and it's super exciting. So there's lots of stuff going on.
So true. Gary, you brought up a key thing, which is RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, which means basically that, LLMs in and of themselves they're trained on a large corpus of information, but when we need to try and ground that information, we then tap into external databases. And so to your point, right, we have to think about how do you safely and securely tap into third-party data sources to augment what you're doing in your own corpus inside your organization. So there's that kind of combination of, now we start to extend the bottle beyond the walls of what we would traditionally protect, and how do we start to think about where you can have model poisoning from that perspective as well.
I think, Jess, you kind of alluded to that as well when you're saying how polite you were to ChatGPT, but that is kind of an element of RAG. You're kind of setting the context of what you want the model to think about. So when you say to it, to pretend you are a systems administrator. That's kind of you're giving it pertinent information. That's what RAG does. It gives it the information, so then you get the answer with reference to the context you need it in.
Okay, we some awesome and exciting things coming out, and I was trying to think of a way to say this without using the word double click or zoom in, because everyone hates those now, and so, but they're just really accurate. So, Gary, I'm going to ask you to double click or zoom in on some of the advances that you just gave us, and how that's really going to help F5 secure AI-powered apps in particular.
Well, I won't put that in the parking lot, and we won't bookmark it. So we'll get straight into it.
You want to circle back later?
Later on, yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, look, if you break it down to its nuts and bolts, and I know it can be disingenuous to hear that AI is kind of just another application. It is and it isn't. But ultimately, it's going to be deployed in some flavor of Kubernetes. That's just the way we see it now. It makes extensive use of APIs, okay, which we've established, but it also needs all of the regular, we call application services, such as availability, monitoring, traffic management, all of these things that applications need. Okay, and that's what we do. That's what we do at F5. That's what we've built a 25-year-old company on, is doing this and being the best at doing it. We've been very deliberate in not AI washing our portfolio, and I'm being very specific here because there's a lot of that out there. Insert company name AI, insert feature name AI. We've seen a lot of that. But we already have many customers using our products and services to secure and deliver their AI applications. Using things like the consistent API security across all of their environments where their apps are deployed. Looking at kind of LLM abuse protection. So one of the things we've worked on specifically is if people are using AI as a service in some of the clouds, they pay for each use, right? So how do we stop that being abused? If they've got a chatbot, if someone abused that, then cha-ching, 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 the cash register just rings up right all the time. So how do we stop that kind of abuse? And that's kind of going back to our automated threat mitigations and everything like that. And another area which we've seen actually quite recently is people they take these general models and they have to kind of augment it with their own data. And in a lot of cases, that's a lot of data. So how do you get a lot of data into these models very, very quickly? And we've worked with customers kind of building kind of highly available, we call them ingestion platforms. I can't think of a better word for that. We're ingesting the data, I guess is what you could say. But yeah, it works. But kind of being able to, get that data in at high speeds across multiple kind of storage endpoints, and allowing our customers to scale that. So, I mean, going forward, we're enhancing our current products, but we're also building new products that will address kind of some of the new threats that we see in the world that we touched on earlier, like, model poisoning, prompt injection, things like that.
I like the not AI washing. That's a cool way of looking at that, and I think that is something that we're certainly seeing. And I want to double click again. I'm gonna zoom in again, Josh. If we could, I'm out of corporate speak. I've got nothing else. I've got no other, I've got no other corporate speak. I'll send you a memo, and Josh, if we could see if we're aligned. There we go. That's a good one. On the Google Cloud side of things. So I'm wondering if you could give us a little bit of insight into what the audience could be doing today in order to secure their applications and services when we're looking at Google Cloud specifically.
Yeah, thanks for circling back, Jess, and I'll try and level set this whole conversation.
God.
Yeah, well, so yeah, I think if you're really looking at how do you practically move forward, right, from this position to secure your apps, as you're using Google Cloud. First, we want to start with kind of the safe architecture, secure AI framework. Think about those things because that really kind of lays this, starting point out for what your roadmap should be. Mm-hmm. But think about implementing best practices for application security by employing tools that'll gain visibility into your workloads, right? Gary mentioned GKE as a key component of where these things are getting deployed. You need to make sure you have the right visibility of those workloads. You need to have the right access controls around those. And then, to Gary's point also, you have to inspect the traffic to and from those applications. And then make sure that you can identify and classify any data that those applications are accessing, and then make sure that you stay on top of all these things like model poisoning, prompt injection, and SQL injections specifically from LLMs, when you deploy your AI inside of your applications. So Those are things to think about, and I think there are some more ways to kind of ground. So, we've worked hard with partners like F5 to help companies, simply, or as Gary earlier, I think, phrased it, ridiculously easy in there, to deploy protections, on your workloads when you deploy them here, and then of course when you also deploy them on Google Distributed Cloud, on-prem. But then think about multi-cloud environments too, right? So how do we know that customers aren't just deploying in Google, they're deploying across existing estates and other CSPs. So we really want to help address that. We've got some really good information for folks today that you can go to on securing workloads on GCP, and I'm sure we'll provide this link here for you to click on. But it's cloud.google.com/architecture /framework /security, and that really has a ton of information on what we recommend as far as what are the starting points where you can go through. How do I deploy my application securely? What are the partners that we, Google partners with to try and help you? And then, of course, specifics around the F5 solutions on Google Cloud. We've got a couple of different references there. The first one is, once again, cloud.google.com /F5. That's our partner site where we've got the information about all of F5 solutions, how they integrate with us, and then what the benefits are to the customer. And then another one is for the F5 site. There's we'll provide the link to this as well, but the GCP page on F5's page provides more rich information there. So yeah, lots of good resources for the audience to refer to as far as how do we get started today.
Yes, and we have those in the handouts tab. So if you haven't already checked that out, go make sure you've got those links. Don't dive in and start reading them yet because we're not done, but open them, have them ready and accessible as soon as we wrap, because I promise you'll want to spend a little bit of time with those. Before we wrap and kind of head out for our day today, which is more close than I'd like to acknowledge. We're in our last 10-ish minutes of time here together today, which is always the saddest part of our conversations. But that means we've got some time for Q&A. So I want to get into some of the audience questions. Gary, Josh, you guys ready to get grilled by the audience?
Absolutely.
Circle back
Bring it
on that. If I can.
Notoriously mean, our audience. That's why. No, we have the best questions out here. Let's start with this one here. Do F5 or Google Cloud use AI in their solutions today? So we got into this a bit. Josh, do you want to kind of kick that off?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think Gary addressed this one earlier with F5 solutions as far as how they've been using AI and what are the enhancements they're doing to provide value to customers. But yeah, let me take it from a Google perspective and talk about a little bit what we're doing. Yeah. So hopefully the audience already has a sense that Google's kind of all in on AI. We have been for quite some time. We've got a long track record of not only groundbreaking AI research. If you think about what we've done around DeepMind specifically, and the Go tournament, and there's been a series of things that we've done to really set the research opportunity as where it could go, and then secondarily, how do we push the envelope, right, with new models and technologies. And of course, we're not just building AI for the sake of it, right? We weave this stuff into the fabric of everything that we do. So when you think about Google Search, which is something Gary brought up earlier, of course, that is richly enhanced with algorithms to how we surface the right responses for you. But then also now you're seeing in the experience Gen AI being brought to the surface with how you can get summarization on those searches. Also, Assistant, right? Assistant exists on our home devices from a Nest perspective, also exists on our phones. And then if you think about Photos, right? Our Photos app is got a lot of rich technology as far as facial recognition, image recognition, and we're bringing also editing tools to bear there too. So we're really trying to make our products smarter and more helpful to users and more intuitive. And then we recently announced, we talked about Gemini models earlier. We've announced Gemini for Workspace. So for folks that use Workspace personally and for business, we've got cool things like Smart Compose and Smart Reply. Maybe you've already experienced this today in Gmail, where it helps you write emails faster. It kind of gives you this little recommendation. You can hit tab to auto insert. It's fantastic for trying to, just get the minutia out of, how do you do all these responses to emails and texts on a daily basis? We've also put it in docs, so you can get help there, which gives you suggestions for phrasing, tone, style. Also, it can help you generate ideas and summaries. So we've actually got a little Gemini token up in the right-hand corner for folks that subscribe to it. to where it can actually, you tell it the prompt you want, it's going to go ahead and give you a recommendation for how you can put that together. We've got things like creative content generation that we've put in slides to generate images. So say, for instance, I know, for a lot of us, we have a hard time getting royalty-free images for our presentations. Well, guess what? Gemini can help you create something that's just unique to you, specific for what you're looking for. So you want to put, your product on a table inside of a red room, bam, it can help you do that, right? So cool things like that. And then, of course, from a Sheets perspective, we've got an analyzer in the bottom right that can help you take a look at the data that's in your sheet. It helps you automatically generate charts. It can automatically write formulas for you. I know, for those of us that went to college a while back, we were doing that manually. Now you just ask the question and it writes the formula for you, which is pretty awesome. So we also announced recently a new application for Workspace. So, we talked about kind of the static content, but we've created a Vids app, which is an AI-powered video creation app, so that you can design not only images, but now you can design video that actually helps to, properly get your ideas across. So a lot of really cool innovations that are going into our products and solutions to just really change the experience and how people can easily access AI in their day-to-day environments.
I just like to add two things to that, just so everyone's aware. The T in ChatGPT is transformer. Google built that. That's Google's research over a decade ago, I think. So so when it comes to Google and AI, I think it's pretty clear kind of who's responsible for all this. But I think you mentioned the AI editing, and every time we see the ad on TV for the Pixel, where I'm notoriously bad at taking photos, and usually everyone's looking different directions and everything like that. And there was an ad on TV for Pixel where you were able to it takes a burst of photos and then chooses the best face. And my wife was looking at going, I need that, I have to have it. I just thought that, but that's a very good use of AI where it's kind of really helping people. You want to get photos, you want to get memories, but just helping people. It's a little thing, but it helps people kind of have better memories, better photos.
Josh, if you have 5 kids, I'm assuming you're an expert Instagram photographer.
I used to be an expert at Photoshop, and now I'm just an expert at using my Pixel and doing best face.
Best face. That's the search word. But you're right, and it's actually funny, Gary. I was thinking that when you were talking, Josh, about the email suggestions, and the first thought I had was, I use that unconsciously all the time. And it's gotten to a point, it wasn't, when we first started using it, it didn't predict very well what I was going to say. So I was often like, no, that isn't what I want to say. But now it's almost bang on what I want to say every time. And I don't even notice that I'm using it. It's that seamless. It's that much a part of our lives, which is pretty cool.
Well, it's making me
and I think that's
smarter.
So. It's learned.
I think that's where this is going too, Jess, is that, AI is going to be seamless in our day-to-day interactions, right? It'll just become so commonplace that we're going to even forget that it's under the covers really helping us through stuff that used to be very manual.
Well, Josh, this is going to tie in well with another question that I want to get to here. We had a question from the audience. How do I actually know which F5 products are going to work with Google Cloud? So in our seamless world where everything is everything, how do we find the specific F5 products that are going to work with our Google Cloud world?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think first off and foremost, there's the links that we've shared inside the doc here. But secondarily, a great place to look is on the Google Cloud Marketplace. So just search for Google Cloud Marketplace and then click on Explore the Marketplace. And then once you get there, search for F5. And you'll see that we have, I think it's 36 listings across F5 and NGINX of all the solutions that are already pre-validated, pre-integrated, and ready to go. So easy to procure, easy to deploy, and that's a great place to go get an overview on what they are. And go ahead and leverage them too.
All right. Well, I think that's going to tie in nicely. We got a couple of questions about sort of kind of getting to know these programs a little bit better. And so I'm going to take this one here. Are there any demos that I could watch?
Yeah, I can start with that one. I think, from a Gemini perspective, which we've talked a lot about today, we've got a ton of explainer videos and just, a bunch of industry specific demos that we've created to kind of help customers understand, A, where do I get started, and B, what's possible. So if you go to YouTube, right, another Google solution, youtube.com, and then /@ the @Google. You'll find we've got a ton of stuff there on our channel that'll walk you through all the great things that we've not only thought up ourselves, but our customers are starting to think of. So.
I like that. All right. Well, I'm going to kind of wrap us up with, I'm taking a couple of final questions here. And there's just a lot that we're not going to get to. But for everyone out there that's asking a question that we haven't gotten to, I am going to make sure that these get sent to our wonderful speakers. So you will get responses back. So keep those questions coming in. But kind of as a good way to bring us on home in our final minutes here, we had a couple of questions coming in about, hey, I want to try Gemini out. I don't want to get started. And I think that always is that wonderful action moment when we've had these cool conversations and you guys get us all pumped up and ready to rock. And then how do we get rocking? So maybe what I'll do, Josh, is ask you to answer that and kind of looking at Google Cloud and Gemini. But then Gary, I'd love to hear from you as well and getting to know F5 a little bit better too. So kick us off, Josh.
Yeah, that's great, Jess. I appreciate that. And yeah, thanks for the question. So first off, we've talked about ChatGPT here, which, of course, I know everybody's probably clicked on once or twice and been able to use. Google, of course, you're right. Gary, thanks for the shout out on the transformer model. Gemini is actually available for all of you to use, just like ChatGPT. If you go to gemini.google.com, you can do all kinds of wonderful things. I mentioned before that it's a multimodal LLM. So you've got image creation and you've got questions and answers. You've got content generation, pretty much anything that you can think of, you can throw at Gemini. So give it a shout. Like if you want to plan your next family vacation, it's a great place to, plug in that prompt and say, well, for instance, I live in Alaska. So what are some great things to do in Alaska? But yeah, gemini.google.com, go check it out. It's a great way to experience Gemini from a text-based and image-based interaction. I think the second one, as I mentioned, Pixels before. So of course our Pixel phones, and Gary, thanks for the shout out on, some of the things we're doing with photography and photos. We've embedded, of course, tensor, processing chips into the Pixel device itself, and we've built in Gemini Nano into Pixel 8 Pro. It also actually has been used by some of our partners on the application side. So WhatsApp and Recorder apps have that as well, and that'll give you kind of a glimpse of what can be integrated on the device. So if there are folks here that are attending today and they want to kind of know what can I do with a nano model, that's a good example of that. And then there's another way, of course, if you want to use your mobile device to access Gemini and ask it questions, there's an app in the App Store for both Android and iOS to leverage Gemini Ultra to be able to try some of the questions and generating images, things like that. So, and if you're wanting to do from a developer standpoint, of course, from Google Cloud, if you go to our site, cloud.google.com, we offer $300 in credits to try any of our services. So you can simply sign up, just go to that site, and then you can start to use any of our first-party services right natively in the console there. So give that a try too if you want to spin something up and see how it works.
All right, lots of good ways to get started. And also, for the record, so many cool things to do in Alaska. All the cool things to do in Alaska, including moose watching with Josh, which is my top 10 recommendation. Gary, talk to us about F5.
Sure.
How do we get started?
I mean, look, the easiest way is to go to our website, f5.com. But I think if you go to YouTube, we have a community website called Dev Central. So DEV Central.f5.com. And if you find our channel on YouTube, there's lots of how-to videos talking about how you can use our services, which are applicable across, Google Cloud and all of the clouds as well. And another place to look at is cloud.f5.com, similar to cloud.google.com. So it should be easy to remember. But yeah, there's lots of good content, lots of good videos, and very easy ways to try anything.
Well, I love that. We've got some great ways to get started and get to know these teams a little bit more. Although, as we all know, you guys kind of need no introduction, but you're moving so quickly, and there's things changing all the time, and the treehouse keeps getting bigger. So we have to keep checking in with you. And you know what, Josh, I'm also now going to use you as my resident Gen Z translator. So when I need hip new phrases,
no cap on that, Jess.
Yes. This is like, we're going to need like an acronym guide to our webinar, and it's just going to have tech acronyms and then Gen Z acronyms. Sorry. Amazing. All right. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for coming to chat with us today. I had such a blast, as always, talking to you, and I'm so excited that we got to dig into some of this information. Gary, I hope that we get to chat again soon. Josh, please come back and join me again, and thank you both for being here with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, what a great conversation. And I'll just add that in addition to all the resources and steps mentioned there by Josh and Gary, don't forget about that Ask the Expert link in your handout section. This is another great place to start because you have the opportunity to set up that 30-minute discussion with F5 just to see how F5 would work with Google Cloud in your environment and for your situation. Also, some of you may have noticed in the Q&A that Beth McElroy posted the F5 page that details the GCP partnership. That's f5.com/GCP. So check that out too. All right. And before we wrap up, we have one more piece of business, and that is the Amazon gift card prize drawing. And the winner of that $250 Amazon gift card is Eric Manwaran from Minnesota. So congratulations to Eric. We'll be in touch to get you your card. And with that, on behalf of the Actual Tech Media team, I want to thank F5 and Google Cloud for making this event possible. And thanks as always for attending and for your great questions. That's going to conclude today's event. Have a fantastic rest of your day.